Me personally, I love a good landrace. Being in the time we're in now, it's so much more difficult to find concepts like OG, Amnesia, Trainwreck, and others like that, but it's even more difficult to find great main landraces grown in small batch. These cultivars had a better balance of multi-layered cannabinoids, terpene expression, and overall effects, but for some reason, we've shifted over to the desserty strains that apparently hit 40% THC. But I don't buy it. If you ever get the chance to score a good batch of landrace, jump on it. It might be one of the most interesting experiences with this plant yet. Hope you all have a good one. Peace.
Landrace. You guys probably hear that term more and more these days. As the search for new cannabinoids, terpene profiles has made landrace strains very, very trendy. However, most of us are more used to modern strains such as Jack Hare or the OG Kush. I'm Aladdin from Code Genetics, and today we'll talk about the main differences between modern strains and old landraces. Today, almost every grower cultivates modern hybrids. However, up until the 1970s, almost all the growers in the whole world were still growing with traces. This, for example, is a hash blend landrace from northern India, from the Himalayas. The terpene profiles are very unique, and the effect is very euphoric and very uncommon as well. It might not be as productive as most modern hybrids. Well, it's like starting to fall right now. It'll end up being like pretty productive, but not as much as most strains you guys are used to. When we talk about landraces, here we'll refer to all the indigenous varieties, the indigenous cannabis varieties that adapted to specific environments and or were cultivated for a very specific purpose over hundreds of years. From the mid-50s up until the late 70s, during the famous hippie era, many young Westerners, in their quest for freedom and enlightenment, traveled along the famous hippie hashish trail from Turkey all the way to Nepal, and sometimes even farther to Southeast Asia. In most of these places, the production of ganja and or hashish had been going on for thousands of years. At that time, each region was still using the local landrace for making hash or ganja. Therefore, many Westerners brought seeds with them. They brought them back to America and Europe. Prior to that, North American growers were almost only growing tall, very slow-flowering sativas from either Mexico, Panama, and Colombia. But when travelers brought back some short, very fast-flowering indicas from Pakistan and Afghanistan, it was a real game changer. Many of them started to grow these plants and crossing different landraces together. These crosses allowed for shorter, more manageable plants that were also more productive. At that time, the war on drugs also forced many growers to stop growing outdoors and start growing indoors. Therefore, these indica-dominant crosses became more and more popular among the growers. That is why most modern varieties around today have Afghan and Pakistani ancestors. Most popular modern varieties, such as Girl Scout cookies, OG Kush, or blue cheese, have almost the same indica ancestors. Although many of these strains are very potent and tasty, well, they're not as different from one another as the landraces can be. The hippie travelers that brought these landraces, from which everything began, only brought relatively small amounts of seeds from certain areas along the hippie hashish trail. The cannabinoid profiles, terpene profiles that still exist today among the landrace populations are much more diverse than what we can find among the modern hybrids. For that reason, many breeders, hunters today, are working with old landraces in order to find plants with unique flavor, effects, or medicinal properties. At Calico Genetics, that's exactly what we do. We both preserve landraces, and we also use them for creating some awesome and very unique hybrids. Compared to modern hybrids, is it easy to grow pure landraces? Well, let me tell you, yes and no. It really depends on where the landrace comes from. For instance, Middle Eastern hash plants like Lebanese, Moroccan, and Iranian cultivars are very low maintenance, fast flowering, and easy to grow both indoors and outdoors. About the Moroccan, it's not from the Middle East, but it's been considered as Middle Eastern landrace because the structure is very similar and it has Middle Eastern ancestors. Likewise, Central Asian landraces, such as most Afghan, Pakistani, and Uzbek cultivars, are easy to grow. These are what we know as, and what most growers call, indicas. Some Himalayan hash plants are also relatively easy to grow both indoors and outdoors, despite the fact that they have an important flowering stretch. Yeah, this plant is from the Himalayas. It was collected from the small village of Rasol by my buddy Coco Jeets. And the seeds of that plant are available on the website. So this is an example of a plant that's considered as a sativa, but which is very easy to grow. However, tropical and equatorial sativas almost always have a very important flowering stretch and a long flowering phase. Indoors, these take some skills and a great deal of patience. Outdoors, in most countries, they often don't have the time to finish, and they die when the weather gets too cold. Although these crazy sativas aren't beginner friendly, breeders like to use them for adding flavor and potency to their hybrids. To conclude, I can't really tell you what's best between modern hybrids and old landraces. I think they both have their place. But diversity is the spice of life. So the fact that most landraces are now disappearing forever means that we all need to preserve them before it's too late. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. Please subscribe to the channel so we can grow the channel and make more cool videos. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.
Cannabis landraces from the Congo Basin represent one of the most distinct ecological adaptations within the global lineage of the plant. The Congo River Basin stretches across equatorial Africa, encompassing dense rainforests, savannas, and regions defined by heavy seasonal rains and consistently high humidity. Cannabis cultivated in this environment could not resemble the resin-heavy, short-season plants of the Himalayas or the broad-leafed Kush varieties of Central Asia. Instead, Congolese landraces developed in response to conditions where moisture, light, and heat take every stage of growth. The equatorial latitude of the Congo creates a 12/12 photo period year-round, roughly 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness each day. Unlike in temperate regions, cannabis here does not experience long summer days, followed by shortening autumns. The plant, therefore, adapted to flower independently of drastic seasonal light changes, producing long flowering phenotypes that can extend 16 to 20 weeks before maturity. This trait, common among African landraces, is especially pronounced in the Congo, where plants must face their life cycles against an environment that never offers the sharp seasonal cues familiar to growers in Europe or North America. High humidity and frequent rainfall imposed another selective pressure: mold resistance. Dense floral clusters would not survive prolonged exposure to equatorial moisture.
Ain't no harm in wandering. Well, there's a bounty of fresh produce delivered daily for the taking. Still, because they're so fresh.
Something new every hour. It's an old.
Do you ever think that your life as a parent feels like a juggling act? With Purdue Global, the juggling act just got easier. Because Purdue Global is fully online, classes work with your schedule. So being a mom and a student would look like listening to a lecture while folding laundry, like studying while making breakfast, and jotting down notes for an essay on a coloring book sheet. And yes, those are my notes next to a picture of Mr. Pig. But here's what most people don't realize is that going back to school doesn't mean starting from scratch. At Purdue Global, the learning you have gained through experience you already have matters, which means your degree may be closer than you think. Whether it's years of managing a team or volunteering in your community, assessment of those skills can move you closer to your degree. So sure, getting a degree while being a mom might be challenging, but that doesn't mean it's unattainable. With Purdue Global, education fits your life, however it looks. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu.
Soil moisture without rotting. Congolese cultivars evolved airy bud structures with open calyx spacing that allows air circulation around flowers. To modern consumers accustomed to dense hybrid flowers, these structures might appear underdeveloped, but in their ecological context, they are precise adaptations for survival. Airy flowers, tall internodes, and elongated branching reduce the risk of fungal colonization, ensuring viable harvests even in persistently wet conditions. Morphologically, Congolese landraces are recognized for their tall stature and narrow leaves. Plants often exceed 3 meters in height, with fine serration and thin leaflets that minimize transpiration under intense equatorial sun. Their growth habit favors vertical stretch, allowing them. Before we begin, a note of clarity. This story is shared for education, to understand how environment and culture shaped a plant now known around the world. It does not promote or encourage use, sale, or cultivation where the law forbids it. What follows is history, science, and the language of survival written in chlorophyll. One was born beneath a sun that never sets on winter, the other beneath a bulb that never sees dawn. Before we ever bred for yield or potency, cannabis evolved through endurance, and nowhere is that history written more clearly than in Malawi gold. In the heart of southeastern Africa, this landrace still grows where the soil burns red with iron, and the air carries the weight of humidity. Here, altitude, rainfall, and relentless light built a plant that learned patience before it learned production. The stalks climb 3 meters or more, each one a living barometer of the equator's extremes. Narrow leaves bleed heat into the air. Open internodes let.
All right. Another cool plant we need to document. This is Operation Documentation because we are actually chopping a lot of these plants down. So this is the Kashmir Azad. We've grown a bunch of Kashmir varieties over the past few years. This came from a different source, and this one's technically the Azad. To tell you the truth, I think in past years I was growing may even be the exact same genetics, just from a totally different channel. Yeah, let's come in and check these out. So the Kashmir is a really interesting type of plant, and they're just kind of in between, like India, Pakistan, and that's where Kashmir physically is sitting. By the way, do you see that butt? There's actually.
Yeah, he's on the front. Yeah, he was on the front. Okay.
Okay, doing his bee thing. But anyway, so here we've got a few Kashmir Azads, so just want to document them because we did just get rain. These are pretty chunky, so I think it's time to take a few of the tops. So let's come in and just take a peek. And one of the really amazing things about the signatures of this, the Kashmir plants, is those super serrated leaves. Yeah, you don't get more like sawtooth leaf than that. And what's really interesting is the buds, I'm going to actually push down the leaves, are actually hiding in all of this leaf. Sometimes it's hard to tell there's actually this big, huge, chunky, rock-hard bud lurking inside this sort of cocoon of serrated leaves. Yeah, but that's pretty rock hard. Now, little terp check. And the terps on these are all over. So this particular expression has almost 0 terps. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience where the plant, they like have no smell. And the really weird thing is a lot of times the zero terp plants can be really stony. So whatever that's all about, I don't know, but that's been my experience. Here's another very cool azad. Maybe we can come in and check out just how chunky these get. This one's still kicking out some white hairs, but the density really rock hard. We just got some rain this morning. But looking at the crystals, can you see the crystals too? They're milky white, so it may be a good idea to at least as big as tops, even though, they could maybe go a few days longer. Sometimes it's just nice to lock in a super clean mold-free harvest. Oh, and by the way, I'll open this up so you can just peek inside, look under the hood. Then you'll see super clean, zero mold. Oh, there's some little decent little gnat flying around. So now I'm going to take a sniff. This one has gravy, like Thanksgiving savory gravy. So totally weird. Yeah, it's like turkey and stuffing and gravy. So it's like savory stuffing and gravy. Don't trip. Okay. Yeah, and I found the cashmere. There's like a pine. There's a savory gravy. There's no terps. And then there's also a bubblegum version. It's very good apart. Check these out. This one, yeah. Getting some good chunky tops up here. See what's going on. Ooh. This one kind of has a pine